to honor our inner child. I'm Robert Wise, your Wise Way coach. You are watching the Wise Way to Success podcast, and I want to talk about our inner child. So many times I have people, adults, come into my office and they are talking about how angry they are at themselves and how horrible they behaved as a child, or how they felt very unloved and stupid and dumb and ugly. And I am somebody who really believes that rather than criticize or judge or shame our inner child, we need to learn to love, accept, and honor our inner self. I had a client that came into my office and he said, "Listen, Rob, I was a bad kid." He said to me, "I was a really bad kid. You know, I got into the youth protection, foster homes. I was locked up for doing petty crimes, breaking into homes, stealing, selling drugs. I was a bad kid." And he goes, "I just feel like I'm such a worthless, horrible person." And I said, "Let's take a moment and let's talk about this bad kid that you're talking about." I go, "How old was he?" 12 years old. And I would be like, running away from home and hanging out with bad kids and doing stupid stuff. God, I was such a horrible kid. I said, if you were to look back objectively at that kid, take a step back, rather than look at that child as yourself, look at that child as a child that's in pain, that's crying out. Would you still have the same anger, hatred, and resentment towards that self? And he's like, no, I don't think so. I go, "Why not?" "Well, because I know I wasn't a bad person. I was hurt, so I was acting out." So you could objectively look at that inner child as a hurt self, a pain self, right? Not a bad kid, not a horrible person. Maybe a kid who did bad things, but not a bad person. There is a difference between being a bad person and doing bad things, right? And I gave him this time to reflect, and rather than judge this inner child of himself as a delinquent, as a loser, as a pathetic person who broke relationships, who got kicked out of his house, he started to look at this child as somebody who was in pain, somebody who was sad, somebody who was acting out of hurt. And by doing that, he was able to see that the child within him was still crying out to this day, because what he needed to do was acknowledge the pain that he felt within himself. Not judge the pain, not label the pain as pathetic, stupid, loser, but really show love and compassion for the inner child. And he said to me, "Rob, how can I love myself when I hate the things I've done, when I hate who I was, when I hate the actions that I have done?" As somebody myself who had an inner child, who has an inner child, who has struggled, who has been in pain, I understand what it's like to judge your inner self, to want to act as though your inner self is like, "Oh my God, I don't even want to talk about my inner child and what they've done and the things they've done because I'm so embarrassed or ashamed." But you know what? It's part of me. It's who I am. I've learned from it. I've grown from it. It has given me wisdom, insight. And I am so grateful to my inner child. As destructive as they were, as disturbed in some cases as my inner child was, I am somebody who was able to appreciate and show compassion and love for my past self. So today I'm going to ask you, rather than judge the past self, rather than label or shame your past self as stupid, ugly, dumb, oh my goodness, I can't even look at pictures of myself in the yearbook because I hated the way I looked. Look at that past self, speak to that past self, and honor that past self by saying what it needed to hear back then. It needed to probably hear, "It's okay. You're okay. You're worthy. You're okay. You're sad, but it doesn't make you a bad person." It's time that we start to find our love within ourselves by going to the pain. I tell this to my clients, the way out is the way through. Let's not avoid our pain. Let's not avoid our past self. Let's learn from our past self. Let's hug our past self, if you look at your past self as a wound, rather than add more fire to that wound, add more pain to it, maybe it's time to embrace it, to hug it, to love it. There's not a day that I don't honor my past self by maybe sharing a story that I learned when I was younger to somebody else, sharing an experience of mine to help somebody with their experience. It's time to love yourself by honoring your past self and loving the scars that maybe it caused, loving the wounds that maybe you feel, but most importantly, by recognizing that your past self was a child in pain and deserves the love and respect that it may never have gotten from you. So I'm going to teach you something really, really quickly that I think is very powerful, and that is to give yourself a hug. Someone once told me, sometimes you just need to give yourself the hug that you never received. So let's take a moment and give ourselves that much needed self-hug, which might seem a little bit strange, but I'm going to do it because I think it's really powerful, and I've done it myself, in which you hug yourself, you close your eyes, and you tell yourself that I love you. And give yourself the hug that you so desperately needed back then, now. I am your Wise Way coach, and if this video was helpful, please share it, subscribe to the channel, and let's spread the self-love, self-compassion, and self-worth that's within all of us. So I hope that you all take this in, and today you honor your inner self, because it deserves your love, compassion, and support. Wishing you all a wise day from your Wise Way coach. Have a good one.